and this is where I'm assuming we're live, Thomas, but I'm just doing a check. I've done this on the last 3 as well, so I waste 20, 30 seconds of everyone's day. Looks. Yeah, it says it's still waiting for us, so I think we crack.
It's happening now. I've just had a message.
Oh, so it's coming through on Dave now. So apologies if anyone has. I really ought to trust the tech. I've worked in tech for 20 odd years. I really ought to trust it, didn't I? But I'm assuming it's coming through on Dave's now. So we'll just crack on. If we've got any issues, we've wasted 40 seconds. No, we haven't wasted 40 seconds. If there are no issues, we have wasted 40 seconds of everyone's time. So glad everyone could join us. This is officially the first episode of EdTech Live. I've done 2 tests before. So the title is number 1.5 because Tom, I think, got number 1. But for this, not this Tom or Thomas, Tom who works with me. So he got the first episode. But full disclosure at the time was he works with me, so I didn't want to go to number 2 straight away. So number 1.5 is Thomas. Do you want to tell everyone a bit about yourself? You prefer Tom, don't you? You prefer Tom?
Tom or Thomas, it really makes no difference to me, to be honest. I'm not picky.
Right, I'm going to go Tom because it's easier to say. So
perfect.
Do you want to tell everyone a bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So my name's Tom or Thomas or whatever really comes to mind. I am a former teacher. I was a teacher for just over a decade, a former head of faculty for a couple of schools in the southeast of England, northwest Kent, southeast London way. Now I work in EdTech, PedTech, really working with technology companies to make sure that what they're doing is pedagogically sound. So actually good for teaching and learning and not just for kind of tech for tech's sake.
You probably preempted something I was going to ask then. So I'm pretty old school. I think it's obvious, given this is visual as well as audio, that I'm slightly older than you, maybe quite a bit older than you. So I'm a traditional EdTech guy, and I keep seeing PedTech floated around. What do we mean when we say PedTech? It's a relatively new phrase for me.
Do you know what this is? I get asked the question all the time, and I get some people saying, "Why are you saying it like that? Why are you saying it weird?" For me, it's because I believe there's a real differential. So there's companies out there and there's tech out there that is really making a special effort to ensure that what they're doing has a pedagogical backing. And by that, I don't just mean they've read a book on Rosenshine and they go, "That'll do. Yeah, we understand it." It's more they really want to ensure that the thing, whatever it is, the platform they're providing, actually makes an impact towards teaching and learning and progress and student engagement. So, for example, a big differentiator would be look at an MIS system. That could be great EdTech, so it's helping you with your education processes, whereas a software that might help with teaching and learning day to day, that would be more PedTech. So whereas I can't help on the EdTech side in terms of programming and numbers and data, teaching and learning is something I care very much about. So there's a difference.
So is it a fair assumption to say back office is more EdTech, classroom, if you're doing it right, is more PedTech?
I would say so. But then there's also a line there as well to be drawn with, some companies, again, I'm not going to name names, but they might come out with something they think's a really good idea. A couple of tech guys. And actually in practice, it's not really going to be doing anything for your students in terms of their progress and their learning. So again, there's a differentiator there, but yeah, I think you've nailed it with what you just said.
That's why it's important to speak to schools, isn't it? If you've got in your mind a great idea, it's important that us who work in EdTech and PedTech speak to schools before we go full on in and try and develop something. I should have said, before I move on to the next question, right at the start, for those that are watching, anyone who's got any questions, if you just put them in the comments, they'll ping up at this end and then we'll try and answer them. If we can't, we'll take them away. We'll make sure you've got an answer afterwards. And anything we reference throughout, if we do reference anything, I'll get hold of a link to whatever we reference and I'll share it in the comments after we finish the live. So first question, without deviating from the ones that I'd looked at before, why Ed and Tech? So what drew you to, I think when we spoke before, your journey is education and then technology, but what drew you to education and then later down the line EdTech?
So I'll be honest with education. I kind of fell into it. I originally, when I first left university, I ended up just fell into a sales role just because it was a job I could get pretty rapidly after university, and really didn't enjoy. It was a state agency in London, and I really just wasn't. I was good at it, but it wasn't. It didn't fulfill me. And someone suggested, "Oh, you like talking, you like kind of being in front of people. Why don't you try teaching?" And I said, "Well, I don't know about that. I wasn't the best. I wasn't the best behaved at school. I wasn't, 100% effort kind of person back in those days. I cared more about having fun with my mates. Went and did it for a kind of a couple of days, literally as a TA observer. And then the school said, "Hey, we'll hire you as a TA." And then they said, "Come and be our head of literacy and numeracy intervention." And they said, "Just come and be a teacher now. You've been here long enough." And that was it. So I just ended up kind of falling into it, but just loved it immediately. And then the tech side, I just always felt that there was changes coming. Even when I joined teaching quite a number of years ago now, I felt like there were things shifting. Schools were getting rid of the whiteboards, and it was digiboards, and projectors weren't just OHPs anymore with pens. You could interact with them. And I thought this is definitely going to be the future. So I always enjoyed experimenting, exploring the new stuff. And I think that's how I ended up here. Just a genuine passion and genuine intrigue.
I always say the best speakers in the world are either educators or vicars, priests, religious people who stand up week in, week out in front of a congregation, whether it's a classroom or a congregation in a church, and speak to people that they've, sometimes never met before. Got to be really, really talented and confident, I think, to a certain extent, to do that. So, all credit to you and anyone else who teaches. I was smiling when you said I kind of fell into it, because I'm sales by trade, and everybody thinks that's a profession that you just fall into. They're like, "Oh, sales, you couldn't do anything else, so you just fell into sales." So I wonder where you're going when you said I just kind of fell into it. What keeps you here? What keeps you in ed and tech?
Yeah, well, actually, just to address your last point, I think people who can stay in sales and succeed in sales, I think that's a very special skill. It got me really worked up. So I completely agree. That's a hard thing to fall into. But what makes me stay here, I think, is the fact that I got kind of what I wanted. I'm working somewhere where everything within the kind of ed tech, PedTech world is constantly evolving, and it really feels like you're at the forefront of the next kind of major wave of change when it comes down to education, when it comes down to technology. So two things I like, even independently of each other. So it's just exciting. There's just always something new every day that the next massive thing might have come out or might be being developed. And I get to be part of it, which is just, really exciting.
See the journey and test it, and see the end users' faces as well is a good one. I mean, I've worked in a couple of businesses where I said I was sales, but I've been involved in product, customer conversations prior to selling and that sort of stuff. And when you see the difference it actually makes, it's so rewarding. I also worked in schools for 5 years, not as a teacher, and I didn't get the same amount of reward, potentially because I wasn't a teacher. I didn't get the same feeling or buzz when I saw a difference. I never felt like I truly impacted on that difference. Whereas working in schools and seeing some of the tech that we roll out and the difference it makes, and speaking to the kids, we do a lot of surveying children after we've been in a school, and listening to some of the stuff the kids say. A is funny because kids are just hilarious and brutally honest, but B really rewarding as well. Do you have any regrets though?
I wouldn't call it a regret. I'd say there's one thing. If you're a teacher, and if you're a teacher watching or listening to this at any point, and you're considering either leaving the profession or maybe you're thinking about getting into the profession, there is nothing I enjoyed more about my job than the interaction I had with my pupils. So, and that's something I miss very dearly. Those little conversations, the little people who say things, and you're like, "Hey, I shouldn't let you get away with that," but it was so funny. How can I tell you off when it's that top quality humour? I really miss that, and that's something which I found very difficult. I think when I first went into the more kind of business world. Again, I don't really do much business in my role, but it feels very different. And I think the conversations you have, they're no longer with kind of 15-year-olds coming to you for advice, or kids who want to show that they won a trophy over the weekend at football. It's It's just adults talking about work, which is great. And obviously, it's like I said, I want to be at the forefront of that evolution. So that's part of it. But yeah, I really miss those pupil-teacher interactions because that was the bit of the job I really valued the most. So anyone looking to leave or get in, that's the one thing I think that you might look back on and go, I wish I could still have that to some extent.
Is there a way you can factor it in? And I'm asking that because we've managed to do that. So we've managed to. I think it's because of some of the partners that we work with. One in particular, Explorer, who are great. But we get to go out and see children using their software and talk to them about using their software. So we've managed to factor it in as part of our offer, really, where we go, look, we're going to show you this works, but not just through our eyes. And we want to see. Literally, not just through our eyes, because it's eye tracking technology, but through the eyes of the kids as well. So we managed to find a way to do that. If you're a teacher who's thinking about getting into tech, it might be something to consider. Can I get that same connection or level of contact with children potentially?
Yeah, I still get windows into that, which is so I'm very, very, very lucky. I think because of the position I was in before I walked into the tech world. And now what did someone call me the other day? It really made me feel really big-headed after. Kind of a thought leader position, or especially where I'm talking about teaching and tech, and I've been where they are. I am very lucky that I get invited to schools and places quite a lot when I train the teachers, but also to work with the students, and I can talk to the students. And I still got all my CRB checks and stuff. So I am very fortunate in that I still get to experience that side, but it's not the everyday, right? It's not every day, But yeah, I'm very lucky in that regard.
And you do miss the bits you were on about, I'm guessing, where kids come in and they genuinely want to show you what they've done over the weekend. You don't get that bit here because you get a small window of opportunity. So I'm gonna move on to a question that I'd actually got on my list a bit further down, but I think it ties in. So if you could give one bit of advice to teachers who are interested in tech, I know you've just mentioned a bit about not a regret, but something to consider. But what's the one bit of advice you'd give to any teacher who's interested in making that transition from teaching to tech, or incorporating more tech in their day-to-day life potentially?
Yes, a good couple of questions. I think if we address the teachers moving into the tech industry one first, I think the thing to do is, one, definitely be certain. Be certain it's a change you want to make, because it's very unlikely you'll get into that tech world and break in straight away. There's a lot of people thinking they can leave teaching and go straight into another business and kind of advise them, but there's a steep learning curve there, and it takes you away from that classroom. So you'll go from being probably very highly skilled at what you're doing into not really knowing what's going on, which is definitely something that you have to be prepared for. And I think actually a further bit of advice to that is if you are in your school thinking I'm not sure I want to be doing this particular thing anymore, don't be afraid to shop around schools or positions. There's so many opportunities out there for talented teachers of any age in any subject, any area. So have a think, have a pause. Don't rush into that decision. But then if you do think you want to make the change, reach out to someone like myself or someone who's made that transition and ask for the advice. I'll be more than happy to talk to any teachers looking to kind of switch or move or just want some more information. I've done it for plenty of people in the past, and I'd be happy to keep doing that because I still consider myself a teacher, even though I'm a bit of a traitor now and I don't work in schools every day. But yeah, so that'd be the first, my two-step process. One, be sure. Two, even if you are sure, still talk to someone like myself and see what insights you can get. And then in terms of if you're teaching, you want to bring tech into the classroom, that's a really easy one. And again, I think when you're talking to a company or you're thinking about what tech you should be looking at, really think about what's going to affect you or your students, or both ideally, and then talk to that company. There's so many companies out there that would be happy to give you free trials of their products, and they're generally very risk-free. Try it out for a month or two or three, and if you don't like it, you've lost nothing other than a little bit of time. So don't be afraid to kind of ask for freebies from these companies, because they'll be more than happy to give it to you. And I think that's a rule that applies to most tech companies. And generally, if it's a good product, they'll be unafraid to say, yeah, of course, try it out for a term. No worries at all. Then let's keep in touch. So yeah, don't be afraid to kind of shop around and ask for those free trials.
Nice. The first one ties to the thought leader comment, doesn't it, a little bit? So, reach out to people like yourself who've been there, done it, and that's easier to do nowadays because of things like. Well, we first interacted, I believe, through LinkedIn.
Yeah.
It's dead easy to find those people who are active in this area, and then reach out to them. And I've found that 99% of people who I reach out to are really receptive about a conversation. The other 1% tend to look at my career history and go, sales, go away. And then I usually break down probably 99% of that other 1% by just being genuine. They just see the sales titles further down my career history. So I'm going to similar sort of question, but about you. So what advice would Tom of today give to Tom right back at the start?
I think probably in terms of my position now, a bit more confidence. In terms of I'm still very reluctant to say I was a good teacher, which is crazy. And I think most teachers, listening to this or otherwise, really hesitate to say I'm a good teacher or I was a good teacher, whatever it was. So I think going into my new position with that attitude, even though my CV speaks for itself, would have been a real big help. One, for me, just boosting my confidence, but two, that kind of self-belief and stamping a bit more authority down. Because like I said, you're joining a whole new world and you might be in a company where you're the only person who's ever been in front of a classroom. So when they're talking about school and interactions between teachers and students and how they think it would help and things like that, I think, I would tell past Tom, get in from the start and just, if someone's saying something wrong, just say, no, it's not like that. I know because I did it. I know because I was there. And I think, when you step out of a career where you're very comfortable and you're doing well into something new, you do kind of feel a bit like a baby again. Like you got to learn how to kind of step and how do I do this? Do I send a message here? Like, what can and can't I say? Who's the boss? And, how polite do I have to be? And I think actually, no, if you're in a position where you've been there and done it, don't be afraid to just say it as clearly as that. That would be my advice. Yeah.
Yeah. I had a boss who used to say to me, it's better that you come to me and ask for forgiveness than permission. Which I think was quite nice. Now, not everyone's that accommodating, but I think that's a really nice mantra. And you've also got to remember that you're there for a reason. So you've made that transition from teaching to another role, but the people that have invested in you in the other role have done so for a reason. They've seen probably something that you, not just you, but people in general, maybe don't see in the start. And there's definitely something about being confident in your own ability. So, one book or podcast, I changed this last time, I think, and the last guest was Greedy, had two, but one book or podcast that you'd recommend to everybody who's listening and why?
So I knew you were going to ask this one. This is one of the ones you said you might mention. So I've actually, I had a real big think, and I might be cheeky too.
Yeah, go on then.
So there are two. Bear with me. That I think are really interesting. Now, this one is going to, hopefully that's probably backwards, but that's a very new book from EdTech to PedTech by Fiona Aubrey-Smith and Peter Twinning, I believe. And that is an excellent book if you're thinking about your kind of digital strategy in the school, for example, right now, or you're as a teacher thinking, where do I start? I think that's a big question I get asked a lot is, I don't even know where to start when I'm thinking about tech for my classroom. And this also explains that, why I use the word PedTech. And I'm kind of, really hammering home that word. Very new, very recent. I think I actually got a print that came out before the book came out. But I think it's widely available. And then the second one's a bit of a strange one. It's not super teaching based. This is a book called Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman or Kahneman. I can't remember how to say it, but this is an excellent book, and it really talks about the conceptualization of thinking and how we learn. And I think for anybody, teacher or not, it's such an interesting read because he really breaks down, how people learn and how everybody learns. So it's not specific to me or you. it will apply to you whether you like it or not. So I just think it's a fantastic read because, again, combine those two and you're going to start really honing down what tools and what things and what passions you would like to look for within your technology. So, yeah, a bit cheeky, I picked two, but yeah, they're two.
That's cool. I'm going to look up the second one, and people will have seen me writing here. So if ever you wanted to just confirm that I don't know any of these answers before we actually talk, I've written them both down. I have seen From EdTech to PedTech several times on LinkedIn, and I think I connected with the authors on LinkedIn as well. It's been on my list, so it's one that I've got on my list to look at as well. We're out of time, I think. Well, there is no time limit, but I try and keep these to 20 minutes. So I was going to have a natter about Bett, but we can do that some other time. It was there in case we needed to fill 5 minutes. So where can people find you, Tom? What's the best way to get hold of you?
The best way probably is LinkedIn. I'm very active normally in replying to messages. I need to start posting more, I think. That's something maybe I should learn from you, Chris. But yeah, I'd say LinkedIn's the best place to start. And obviously I'm attached to all of this anyway. So click on that, add me or follow me on there. And if you've got any questions or want to have a chat, just send me a message. And yeah, easy as that.
Perfect. We've got somebody who's actually commented. So let me see. There we go. Tom Parkinson, previous guest. Love those suggestions. So I don't know if you're on commission for either of the books, but if you are, you might have just bagged yourself a bit of commission. So, well, thanks for your time, mate. We'll touch base again after this. I'll get links to both of the books and put them in the comments. Like you say, everyone can get hold of your profile via this live, or when it is not live anymore afterwards, they can get hold of your profile. Great to speak to you.
Yeah, pleasure.
Take care, mate. See you later.
See you later on.
Bye.